Hey everybody, it's whoa, it's don't lean on that, that's what that is. It's Leon with Bigfoot Okanagan. I'm in a bit of a conundrum, and I'll tell you why. I've been doing a lot of research over the winter on structures, and my conundrum is I want to make sure that, and I'm just about done the video. It's fairly long, probably going to be in 3 parts, 20 minutes each. Because I want to look at a few things. First of all, whenever we're looking for evidence, I am not a believer in the woo, as most of you know, and I don't have any problems if you are. I like to take more of a scientific approach, I guess. And there's 3 things I'll be covering in regards to structures as far as prep education goes, which is the first one would be having a cynical look or a cynical view on things. And I don't mean that in a negative way, I mean it in a constructive way. Another one is critical thinking. What is critical thinking? Which isn't about criticizing, it's about using a formula when you're looking to assess things to make sure that you're staying fair about your process. And one of the third other points I'll be talking about in the structure video, we'll talk about what is a hypothesis. Now my conundrum is I have some really good friends and people online that I have used as allies and continue to use as allies. And I want to make sure people truly understand that I am not here to criticize anybody's other positions about structures. The idea about coming up with a mnemonic or that wasn't demonic, that was a mnemonic or an acronym when you're looking at structures is so when you're out in the bush you can kind of have an idea of a guideline to find out more realistically, are you looking at something made by a Sasquatch compared to something made by a person? And I'm not too sure if everyone will receive the videos on structures the way I'm kind of hoping that they will. I have lived in the bush for months on end when I was in forestry, and there is a difference to me in regards to structures that are more than likely probably been done by squatches compared to ones that have been done by man. Now, kind of before I do the video in regards to structures, I want to kind of do this video. This will be probably Squatch Ramble number 2 for 2018. And listen, I want you to go online and just out of your own curiosity, I want you to go to punch in about 10 different countries and online on YouTube. And when you're punching in, like say Argentina, I would like you to look at find the #1 style, architectural style. Sorry, the horses might be making some noise behind me because they're trying to get my attention. That's P over on my left side here. And I want you to look at different architectural designs from different countries, because why you see differences in building structures from different countries is because it goes through the cultural impression of each of those countries. So the people who design them, and churches are really good, or our faith buildings are really good, because usually each faith has its own particular style or design of architect that they use. Now, the reason why I'm sharing that with you is, listen, I can safely say, even though I worked in forestry for 10 years and spent a lot of time in the bush, I certainly probably don't have the intuitive eye, at least it takes me a while to get kind of back into that zone, that First Nations or Native Americans would have. And there's some really important things to understand that when we are looking at a structure, and again, the difference between a structure made by man is it'll have a cultural look to it. In other words, man-made, Western-made, European-made, compared to if my culture was as a Sasquatch and I was roaming around in nature and my country would be natural, the nature of the forest, it's probably more likely the look I would do would be more readily prone to fitting in with the environment. Now, kind of why is that important? Well, the reason is I find that a lot of the structures that we seem to find online don't seem to have the natural rhythm look to them of a animal that I believe is Sasquatch, that has a high, I should say a mammal, that has a higher conscious availability to itself. Whether it's, I'm still out in regards to what it actually is we're dealing with, but I certainly don't think of it as being a stupid animal, and I don't like using animal. I use animal in a sense, or mammal in the sense, the same way I'm an animal and I'm a mammal, but I have a conscious availability to me, and that's what seems to me that Sasquatches have, is a conscious availability to them. And so when you look at a structure, one of your key parts, I don't want to get too much into this because it'll be all on the videos, the video on understanding structures, is that Sasquatch, from what I've been understanding from most researchers and different people I've talked to, especially like with First Nations. I don't have many First Nations people that I have discussed the issue about structures with that buy into structures that readily, because, I mean, think of it. The First Nations and American Indians have known Bigfoot for hundreds of years. You know, Anglo-Saxons, us guys, we picked it up about 50 years ago, and that came from the Gimlin film. And so we've been kind of doing it, but it's been around for like hundreds of years in regards to the First Nations and Native Americans. Now, they don't have a lot of comments or thoughts on Bigfoot regarding structures at all. So that should give us a moment of pause in regards to when we're trying to associate structures with Sasquatch. Again, I do think they do structures, but I think their structures blend more into nature than stand out. And what I mean by that is when you come across a structure, it'll either be more prone to be inside of a environment that's not easy access to get to. If you're finding structures that are readily available to you in your area, I want to caution you a little bit. You want to make sure that that area is also not a treaty land or First Nations land, because the First Nations spend a lot of time with their up-and-coming generation to teach them bushcraft and teach them their natural traditions that they come out of. So it doesn't make sense to me if Sasquatch have this ability or this wisdom about themselves to keep themselves just at our eye distance. In other words, we can't see them, but they can always see us. To all of a sudden be putting structures all over the place where everyone gets to find them all the time. It's kind of like, oh, okay. It doesn't seem to fit with their psyche in regards to their personality of what we understand about them. I don't think they're necessarily shy, but they're certainly brilliant at being able to navigate through the forest and keeping a healthy, safe distance between them and us. So, you know, there's a lot of good people out there. I really appreciate Leanne Carnegie from Southern Ontario Sasquatch research, because, you know, she's pretty fair about the whole thing. She's totally ecstatic whenever she sees one, which is awesome to see, because it's like her, I said this to her the other day, I said, it's like watching you at Christmas time. You know, you're like a little excited little schoolgirl. And I really appreciate her enthusiasm and stuff. And she tries to be really fair about it. And she goes into other things that I think most of us just forget. We run into a structure and immediately it goes towards Sasquatch. And I remember being that way a little bit as well. But what I appreciate about her is she definitely puts up recorders in the area. She looks for footprints. She waits for wood knocks. She goes out there at nighttime to check out the area. And I think that's part of the formula that you have to bring into when you're looking at structures. I always go back to structures on a repeated basis over a period of time, over a year, to see whether or not they've been readjusted, built, taken down, rebuilt in another place. One time it was kind of not so convenient, but I was out looking at a spot that I had seen structures in before, and there happened to be a group of First Nation people there, and yeah, they happened to be done by them, and it was it was good to get the education that they were providing. And I hope to also do some videotaping for our local band here in the Okanagan, and talk to one of their reps, and really understand the stories of Sasquatch in regards to their culture and their points from it. And I would encourage you guys to do the same if you happen to have any First Nations or American Indian. I don't know if you guys call them American Indian. We don't use the word Indian that much. And I know Thomas Siegel, I talked to him and he says, yeah, I get flack all the time because I use the word Indian. Well, first of all, he is First Nation, so he can use whatever word he wants to use for the whole thing. But I have a high respect for the First Nations. But anyways, kind of going back to what we're talking about, which is structures. I just want to make sure that what we're looking at is indeed squatches. Some of you might be getting a little worried about, just listening to me here. Well, my goodness, what's this guy going to say about Bigfoot structures or Sasquatch structures? Well, I'm not going to say anything negative about it. But what's important to understand is, listen, I'll show you stuff that to me seems more likely to be squatches compared to things that aren't squatches. And I sent out that little video last year about showing all these structures, and asked you guys to weigh in to tell me whether or not you thought they were Bigfoot influenced or Sasquatch influenced, or if they were just man-made. And I think there was 3 of you that nailed it on the spot, which was they were all man-made. And that could be a threat to some of us, but I'm not doing it as a threat. The idea is, if you understand what you're looking at, then you can move on quickly to what we're trying to find and what we are looking at. So we're not spending excessive amount of energy trying to put something onto something that's not there at all. A couple of clues usually that I have found that you can tell if, and I'll get into this deeper in the video series that I'll be doing, that there's man-made structures, is if there's logs or stumps within inside of the structure, it's more than likely man-made. If there's pattern to it, in other words, when you go up to a structure and you see it, what's your first gut impression about the whole thing? Because most of the time, again, especially when you really get into understanding Western, like I was mentioning at the beginning of this video, when you understand the difference between cultural architect, and you really understand when you look at different cities and you look at the architect of those different cities in those different countries, they look different. So the White House does not look like the Kremlin. They look different. And it's because there's a cultural imprint there. And when you start tapping into understanding what a natural imprint of a cultural Squatch would view, you'd get it. So when you come across these monkey bar kind of things, Colorado Bigfoot, he's got some stuff there that I've ran into myself, where you got logs that are this wide in diameter, and they are enormous, and they're hanging in the trees. I mean, that is not wind blown, it's not snow load, it's certainly not trees falling on trees. It just doesn't make any sense. And I just found one today, filmed one today. I'll get a chance to maybe pop it on this video here too. When you look at it, there's just something that looks more evenly blending into the forest. And that's kind of what I'm talking about. When you look at the architect of what you're going to probably find in regards to structures that are made by Sasquatch, it's more than likely they're going to blend into the environment instead of standing out, right as plain as day. It doesn't seem to fit the profile of what most researchers or searchers have come up with in regards to the idea that Sasquatches are fairly inept to hide themselves from us, and yet they're right there with us. So, yeah, my conundrum is, when you guys watch the series on tree structures, it's just an extra tool. I'm not claiming 100% accuracy on any of it, but there's stuff that I use to help me kind of narrow down what is it I'm actually looking at. So hopefully when I pop that out, at least the first one, later this week, you guys can give me some feedback on that. And I want to put a shout out just before I end here in regards to Les Strauss from Survivor Man. He has got a great, I think it's SMTV on Facebook. You can just Google it, Les Stroud TV. And I would recommend all of you guys to join his site. It's only $3.50 a month, which is a steal of a deal. And he's got a lot of good stuff in regards to helping your brain shift a bit into being able to be in the bush and start recognizing things. Not to mention, he also has a set of videos, not set, but one of his categories besides survival in the bush, it's also about Bigfoot, and he's got some pretty interesting stuff. Now I would like to show you one of his videos that he just posted, but I don't want to do that. I'd rather you go check him out and sponsor him or support him in what he's doing. But I will tell you a little bit about the video. He had an experience that obviously has affected him to such a degree that he's not ready to share it yet. So that'll hopefully wet your whistle a little bit to check them out to see what it is. It's only $3.50. So for $3.50, you could probably go through a lot of his videos in this next month. And you can pay PayPal, you can pay him on and that. But again, just check him out. Okay, I hope you guys have a awesome week, and I'll talk to you soon on Bigfoot structures. Take care, everybody.